Hey, welcome to another edition of Kyle Meredith with. It's the interview series presented by WFPK and WFPK.org, Consequence, and the Consequence Podcast Network. Thanks as always for making your way here. For checking out the series, you know what to do. If you like what you see, what you hear, hit that subscribe button. I put out 3 new interviews every single week, so it's a great way to keep up with all of your favorite artists. And I'm so excited. Hank Azaria is here today. Hello, sir.
Hello, Kyle. How you doing?
I'm great. It's a pleasure to have you here. Usually we might be talking about one of your many film or television roles, or of course The Simpsons. But I'm so happy because today we get to nerd out about Bruce Springsteen and your Hank Azaria and the Easy Street Band that you've been doing. What for the past? It's just this year, right? It started earlier this year, right?
Starting in April with my 60th birthday, I had some mixed feelings about turning 60. Asked myself what might bring me joy on a day like that, besides having a lot of people I love around. And thought I'd surprise folks by working up. I've been imitating the way Bruce talks since I was a teenager. Let me try to sing like him, see if I can do it. Put together a band, and we ended up playing for almost an hour and a half. And instead of gifts, I just said, please donate to my foundation. We raised $30,000 that night. So, we put two and two together and said, why don't we do this a couple times a month, raise money for the kids and sing like Bruce for the fans.
And that's really great, by the way. And knowing how deep your fandom goes with Bruce, but taking the jump between playing for some friends and family, and then, I mean, this is your first time fronting a band on stage in front of people, I think, right?
Definitely, definitely. And it feels like the first time, no matter how many times I do it still. Uh, yeah, it was quite a leap. I was so nervous just on the night of my birthday that I've never thrown up from nerves as a performer in my life. I did that day. I think it's because how much this means to me, because of my deep love and fandom of Bruce and how much these songs mean to me. And I think uh, it was less about making a fool of myself, although that was part of it, and more about doing these songs any version of justice. And I worked harder on this vocal singing impression than I've worked on any other voice job in my life by a lot. I spent over 6 months. It was a weird side door I found into trying to learn how to properly sing, which I'd never really done before, even though I've sang comedically and in character a lot in my career. I never tried to sing authentically before, certainly not like Bruce. It was a whole different deal, man.
Yeah. Now, has that helped your non-Bruce singing voice? Like, is there a Hank singing voice?
Yeah, I mean, tremendously it has. I mean, if you can sing kind of through this rasp, you can definitely sing otherwise. So I'm always caught between trying to capture the impression, which I am trying to do. I'm a mimic at heart and by profession. Um, and I'm also trying to sing as well as I can. Those sort of go hand in hand. The first few months, I really just worked on the impression by myself. Then when I got it to a place where I thought it was getting pretty close, then I worked with a vocal coach to see if I could support it properly and actually sing and breathe and spare my voice, because it's hard singing like that for even 10 minutes, let alone an hour and a half. I don't know how Bruce does it for 4 hours.
For 4 hours, yeah. So when you deconstructed it, like what was the actual process of finding his voice? Because one of the things I've always found interesting is for a Jersey guy, he has a surprising little bit of twang that
He
pops out
does.
every now and then.
There's somehow a bit of country in his voice. I'm not sure in his speaking voice. I'm not sure where that comes from. And so I mostly go off of live recordings that I'm imitating. I've been a huge fan ever since I was 12. Back then, I was 12 in 1976. And back then, that was absolutely the days of vinyl. I don't even think cassette tapes existed yet. I think we had 8-track tapes. If you Google those, kids, if you want to know what that is. And so, about every weekend we go down to the record store and look for bootlegs, look for live recordings of Bruce concerts. And I always love those live versions. That continued. Now you can go on Spotify or wherever, you can find endless amounts.
Right.
But and there were even some versions of Bruce's songs where he absolutely does a country version. Like there's a recording of Glory Days and a recording of Darlington County and several others where he just sounds like a country singer, you
Yeah.
know.
Especially, I mean, the fun thing about those two that you just mentioned, because you know, I love listening to Bruce, and I think I'm just usually looking for an excuse. And knowing this was coming, I'm like, I'm going to listen to every album in sequence and get as far as I can before this interview takes place. And you know, get it going from Nebraska to Born in the USA, and remembering, because I hadn't thought about it in a while, that there's a version of each of those records the opposite way. There's a version unreleased of Nebraska that sounds like the big production of Born in the USA, and a version of Born in the USA that's, as we've heard, like in the original version that he has released, that title track, that sounds like Nebraska.
Yeah.
You know, like, and I know I'm getting off track from the original question anyway, but it's crazy that that guy can do that with any song. And knowing
Yeah.
that, yeah, those rustic country esque versions of Born in the USA exist. Like to me, that's what I've always assumed about that twang that I'm talking about. Like his influences, you know, of some of the older country stars must have just like crept in so hard that it took over just the way he talks.
I guess so. I mean, he's also his speaking voice to me has some of um, that kind of 1950s, 60s kind of cool jazz, hep cat musician speak to it, almost beating it, you know. Um, so I don't know, but I think for Bruce, I mean, he's written some songs that could pass as country songs for sure. I think because country music, it's often tells such a story, you know, and so do Bruce's songs, they lend themselves. But yeah, you know, the stripped down, you know, Nebraska version of Born in the USA is really haunting. Sorry, there's a siren going by. I'm in New York City.
Can't even tell.
Um, and I don't know, conversely, Atlantic City from Nebraska, if you've heard the live version of that, the electric that I think he did on that MTV concert he did, which was supposed to be unplugged, but he plugged in.
Right.
That's an amazing version of that. That's the version of that song I prefer, actually.
Yeah. Just, I mean, and it says so much about his songs. Like they can exist, you know, he was a you know Dylan fan as well, and that's the master of it to me. Like Dylan, I don't know how his mind works where he says I can write a song and then I just get to choose which mood it's going to be, which sound it's going to be, which version it's going to be that gets released. And there's like 10 different versions of every song, and I think Bruce, you know, is pretty good about that as well. Atlantic City being a good thing. So you mentioned though, you know, 76 was your introduction. Like, what do you remember like hearing it for the first time? Like, what was your first Bruce?
I do. I was at summer camp, um, and David Blumenfeld, who lived in my bunk, was playing. I think it was the song 10th Avenue Freeze Out. It was definitely from Born to Run. And I said, "What's that?" And he was like, "What do you mean, what's that?" You know, he completely derates. Like, that's Bruce Springsteen. I'm like, who's Bruce Springsteen? He's like, "You got to be kidding me, dude. Who's Bruce Springsteen?" And he played me the album completely. It really, you know, like a lot of us, it was love at first hearing, and got completely obsessed with Bruce that summer. That summer was filled with Bruce and ELO,
Mhm.
a lot of Electric Light Orchestra that summer as well. And then, you know, not long after that, Darkness on the Edge of Town came out. But in that time, I had circled back to Bruce's first two albums, Greetings from Asbury Park and The Wild, the Innocent, and the Street Shuffle, and had memorized those albums without meaning to by the time that Darkness came out. And that was it. It's just like the one of the amazing things about Bruce music, right, is for those of us who love it, he feels like he's singing personally to us. It felt like he was narrating my life, even though I wasn't particularly into cars or but it just felt like it, especially those early albums that captured that kind of male teenage passionate spirit. His poetry married to his music, we all know, right? It hits you on a very deep level.
Yeah. And it's incredible, those lyrics, like right from the blinded beginning in Greetings, is how incredible those lyrics are. And for the band, for the Easy Street band, for your band, like I think you're mostly concentrating on those first, what, five albums, Greetings to the River, maybe?
Yeah, I'd say right now, anyway, the latest song we do is Wrecking Ball.
Uh-huh.
Uh,
It's a
but
great one.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a great song. Um, and there's a lot of songs from Lucky Town and The Rising or several others I'd love to do. But yeah, we focus mostly on those first five albums.
Yeah.
Uh,
There's such
yeah,
a
through the river.
looseness to that music too. Like the pop 80s, hadn't happened yet. And your band, like the videos I've seen online, like being able to pull that off because of that looseness that still existed on those first five albums. Like I don't even think they can write like that anymore. Whatever that was, however that happened, like it's such an interesting thing. You've been inside the songs now. Like, did you sort of find stuff that you didn't notice about them before?
Yeah, I mean, I got really fortunate because I had this idea. My son is a pretty gifted piano player. He's 15 now. His jazz piano teacher I knew was in a Genesis cover band. So when I had this idea, I hit him up. His name is Adam Cromwell. I knew he was a professional musician as well as being a piano teacher. He also scores TV and film. And I said, "Can you put this together for me?" And so we worked together for months, shifting the songs into a key. I sing a little bit deeper than Bruce. So we brought him down a step or two, found the right key, worked on a lot of songs. In that time, I was kind of beginning to learn how to sing properly in order to bring myself up to the level of these songs. And Adam was playing piano along with it. He put together a band of professional musicians. Now, these are all kids, kids to me. They're all in their 30s. And they really didn't know this music. Only one of them, our bass player, Jeff Koch, his dad was a huge Springsteen fan, so he grew up with the music. They play it so brilliantly, and they pick it up so fast. I assume they always assumed that they were all familiar with the music as I was. They were not.
Wow.
So one of the joys of this for me, of many, has been they've now fallen in love with this music as well. I mean, they have no choice. I'm their boss, and they got to play it. I'm their boss. There, Bruce is the boss. I'm their boss. So, uh, but they actually have. You can tell they've discovered the raw, beautiful poetry, appeal, simplicity, complexity of this music, and the joy in playing it. I mean, that's what I've discovered is, like, as hard as it is to sing these songs, and some of them really are hard. Um, I do feel like I'm inside them now and understand them in a different way. Because what it takes to sing them, um, singing full out, which I'd never really done before, is an act of I don't know how to describe it. It's scientifically proven that your vagus nerve really likes it. Your body enjoys, whether no matter how well or not well you're singing, that fully committing to singing like that, it's like dancing. It releases endorphins.
Yeah.
And some of those rock and roll noises that Bruce makes, especially that screamy noise he makes in some of the live recordings, like on there's a live recording of Prove It All Night that we sort of based our production on, and towards the end, that yeah, that kind of thing. When you unleash that at full volume, it's like gestalt therapy. It's like scream therapy.
Yeah.
Sometimes I've gotten emotional doing it because it's like it felt like years of teenage angst and upset that he was just screaming out in a song, and it kind of hit me that way sometimes, just trying to perform it.
Yeah. Just to be this far into your career and unlock something, like to discover something about voice and the emotion that comes through voice that you hadn't before, like that's interesting, I think, you know.
I didn't mean for this to become like an act three, starting when I'm 60, mini career here. I just wanted to have fun and cheer myself up at my birthday party and surprise my friends, who are most of them are Springsteen fans, and just kind of blow people's minds with, "All right, here we go." like, and the way I went into it at my birthday was like, yeah, I know y'all know I can talk like Bruce. Can I sing like Bruce? Fair question. And I am prepared to prove it. In fact, I'll prove it all night. 1, 2, 3, ha! And we went into, and so, but yes, I that has been another big joy of this is uh finding, and I'm a vocal, nerd.
Mhm.
So to discover another way to pursue that and unlock something, I didn't mean to do it, but I'm very glad I did. It really has kind of rejuvenated me in a lot of ways. I've rediscovered a love of it was hard for me to find anything new to do vocally, at this point.
Yeah. And what we haven't talked about that we're tiptoeing around too is because the other part of your show is while you are doing the Bruce voice and singing the Bruce songs, you're telling your own stories, and this is where the high concept of what this goes on. Like, what is that side of things? Like, what do you get out of that?
Well, that idea, well, those bootlegs I mentioned, those early live recordings, Bruce often tells stories, very long stories sometimes during those. We called them talks. Well, there's a great talk on this bootleg from the main point. There's a great talk on this one from the Coliseum, blah, blah, blah. And those talks, as much as the music really impacted me as a teenager, a lot of time the messaging in them was follow your heart, follow your dreams. You can be a creative person if you want to be. You can be who you are. And I had some very troubled times, especially as a teenager. And Bruce's music and those talks really got me through them. So they're an idiom that I'm very familiar with, and I'm a mimic. So I tend to memorize what I heard and kind of spit it back the way I heard it. And so really though, for the party, I knew that, I had 550 people of my closest friends and relatives there. And I knew that half the folks were going to be Bruce fans and half would be new to it. So I figured I'd introduce the songs and tee them up and explain why they meant something to me, uh, as part of the night. I didn't know whether I'd be able to get 2 songs down. I ended up playing 10 songs that night. And in the course of introducing a song or explaining why it meant something to me, or why it made me think of my son, or how I met my wife, or why I learned Bruce wrote this song, and the circumstances behind, say, Dancing in the Dark, whatever. I thought that was a fun way to keep the audience interested that night. And I love imitating Bruce, and I was like, well, can I tell these stories about myself as Bruce? That's weird, but it worked.
Mhm.
It worked. And then now that's part of the show. It's like this weird, yeah, it's like this weird sort of one-man show that is a tribute band, but is also this homage to Bruce's storytelling verbally as well.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait to see one of these. I'm already selfishly in my head, like thinking about the songs I want to hear you play that you haven't yet. Like, I gotta hear some Devils and Dust and Radio Nowhere, some of that late mid career stuff,
That we
like
haven't
that.
gotten to later stuff. The one we met, that live Electric Atlantic City, I really want to add. We're adding 4 new songs right now, which brings us to about 20 in our repertoire. I'd love to get 30.
Yeah.
That's my goal for the course of next year.
Yeah. So that's the plan. Like you're still going through this. Like how, like this just goes until you decide you don't want to.
Oh, I'm all in on this. I love it. I turned down a lot of things in favor of this. I'm very, very fortunate that The Simpsons puts me in a position where I can pick and choose what I want to do. At the ripe old age of 60, there isn't too much I haven't done at this point that would make me really want to go experience something in the acting world. I mean, that said, I'm about to do this really lovely series with Mandy Patinkin where I'm playing Thomas Edison, oddly.
Nice.
I'm doing a week on Broadway in this interesting project called All In, very funny thing. Lin-Manuel Miranda and some other very talented folks. But those are short gigs. I'm really mostly dedicated to this. I'd love to take the tribute band to the height of that world is really playing like 2,000 seat theaters,
Mhm.
and the bigger venues we play, the more money we raise for the foundation. And I can't, nothing brings me more joy than working up these songs, figuring out stories to tell to go along with them, and playing them. I mean, and I keep my learning curve as a singer is very steep. I'm really enjoying that. I keep unlocking different parts of my voice, getting stronger vocally. I'm very obsessed now with building that up. So I'm really loving this.
Yeah. You mentioned the roles and the other roles that you've done through your career. I had to bring some of those up as well because Gross Point Blank, one of my all-time favorites. Your
That's a
character,
deep cut. I love that movie too. Yeah.
of course, I had props because those soundtracks, as we're talking about music, opened me up to so many incredible 80s alternative artists as a in the country of Kentucky, when that wasn't readily available. That stuff.
I think that John Cusack had a lot to do with that
Yeah.
soundtrack. He's
Yeah.
very musically oriented
Yeah.
and knowledgeable, and I think he helped handpick a lot of those songs.
Yeah. That was a great one anyway. Your character in that and Birdcage, Herman's Head. Hello Tomorrow. That was such an interesting show, and I love that. I guess I'm not expecting that we'll ever see a second season from the sound of it.
No, that
Yeah.
thing didn't do well enough to continue. I thought Billy Crudup, who's a friend of mine, was really extraordinary in it,
Yeah.
like Emmy-worthy extraordinary. I think that unfortunately the show was kind of taking on too much and two separate ideas that didn't quite come together. But it's too bad because Billy's work was pretty amazing in it.
Yeah. I had him on here to talk about that and that retro futurism. I'm a sucker for that every time. Um, on the television shows, Friends.
Yeah,
Did you ever talk to Courtney Cox about your Springsteen fandom at that time, knowing that she was in a music video?
maybe I mentioned a thing or two. I tell a story about Paul Rudd was there the night I met my wife. This is in real life. And I tell that story that night leading into She's the One. Um, but I don't think I ever discussed it with Courtney. And we do dance in the dark too.
Yeah.
But I didn't discuss it with Courtney, I don't think.
So that's one of those moments. Do you reveal just like your nerddom at that point? Like, I know that been a part of the story. Like
Oh yeah.
unloading that off, that's onto someone. That can be a lot, I think.
Yeah, I don't even consider that nerdy. I mean, that's just, of course, I mean, what's nerdy is when, you quibble about the lyrics to Wild Billy's Circus Story with someone and, you get into a deep conversation about that for half an hour.
Um, I know you've met, I've read that you've met Bruce a couple times. Have you talked to him since you started doing this?
No, I get very nervous around, I fanboy so hard around. I tell that story too in concert in the middle of growing up. And but I heard apparently Patty Scalfa and myself share a dentist, and she was in his chair, and he had one of I think our Thunder Road video, and he played for Patty, and apparently she liked it, and thank God saw it for what it is, which is this loving homage. And apparently played it for Bruce, and he got a kick out of it. But who really knows? But I
But
mean,
he's good about that. Yeah, he's good about the pop in, with the thing. And you're going to be playing. I think I said it, but Brooklyn Bowl. You're playing Brooklyn Bowl on November 8th, and
Brooklyn Bowl, November 8th. That's right. Come on down. There's plenty of tickets still available.
that's the opportunity right there.
Although we'll be at the Stone Pony at the Mothership November 15th. That one is very nearly sold out already.
Yeah.
Brooklyn Bowl, I'm pretty sure there's still seats.
I know we only got a couple minutes here. I have the most random of question that
All
I'm
right.
probably not right about, but I've wanted to ask you for over 25 years, had I ever had the chance. So here's this movie, Great Expectations,
Yeah.
which you were also in. I
Yeah.
don't have this picture here, and I wish I did, and it might have been on a VHS or a DVD or something. The older lady who was in the movie, there is a picture of her sitting at a table. Maybe it's the right angle, but I swear to God, I thought that's Hank Azaria in her wig with the makeup on. Did you
Gee, I
ever do
don't
that?
think so. No, I did not do that. You're right. That's a strange question.
That is a strange
Um,
question.
It was
Yeah.
Anne
Anne
Bancroft.
Bancroft, yeah.
We do look like we could be in the same family. That's for sure.
It was just the
She
light
sort of
on one
played
picture.
the Miss Havisham character. Um, and I got to know her a little bit. She was married to Mel Brooks.
Mhm.
And she was an incredibly talented actress and a very sweet woman. And Mel is a very nice man. Also, Mel Brooks did some Mad About Yous around the time when I was hanging around that set a lot. And so I got to meet her and know her a little bit. I didn't work with her in that movie, but no, that was Anne Bancroft that you
All
were
right.
looking at right
I
there.
mean, I thought that was the possibility, but there was enough times that I saw that picture. I was like, one of these days, if I ever get to ask him that, I'm gonna at least to make myself feel better. Mystery solved. And then of course, with the Simpsons, my God, I know that's its own conversation. I was looking over and I found this little guy sitting around.
Oh,
So
Bumblebee Man.
yeah, it's been a
Yeah,
while.
sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Did you with as long as you've been doing it now, with as many characters have you that you've done, as we're talking about voice work, was there any that like was hard to shake? I want to say that you could lose yourself in. Like I've asked actors that you like, have you ever had a role that was hard to shake? And some people have that. Does that work the same way for you?
No, uh, I've done some projects that were hard to shake. Um, like I did a Holocaust drama about 24 years ago, a miniseries for NBC called when they still made such things, called Uprising, about the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. And it turns out trying to reenact the Holocaust every day will depress you. Um, and I was genuinely emotionally affected by that and couldn't figure out why a week or two into shooting that. I'm like, gee, why am I so down? And it, you tend to you do tend to psychologically sort of take on what your character's going through. Like most obviously, if you have a day on a set where you need to cry in the scene, right? It's only maybe a minute on film, but you spent about 12 hours or 8 hours that day doing that scene. So that's like 8 hours where you've been near tears or at tears. Your body doesn't know the difference between like fake tears and real tears. Um, and that sort of plays on you. And if you're doing a role that is going through a lot emotionally, it can really affect your mood for sure, for real. Like without even being a method actor or any kind of
Right.
like crazy commitment to the role. It's just that that's why it's more fun to do comedies. More fun to spend the day deciding how can we make this the funniest, as opposed to how's this going to be the most intense and depressing and upsetting.
Right.
So yeah, but I do once I lock into a voice, like I talk like Bruce, the body tends to follow. When I talk like Chief Wiggum, my IQ goes down by about 80 points for some reason. I talk like Mo, I just get a lot angrier. My face gets, I look angry and I am angry, quite frankly. I could kill you right now, Kyle. Um, and that does happen, but it's not like I can't shake it at the end
Mhm.
of, end of the day.
Yeah. But just keeping up with as many that you've done, that's the impressive parts, among many other impressive things that you've done, I should say. But I'm so happy that you found a new one to embody as well. With Mr. Springsteen here, I can't wait to see one of these shows, man.
Yeah, please come as my guest, in fact.
Right on. Well, thank you,
Great.
man. And thank you so much for taking the time to talk about it, man. This has been so much fun. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having us. Yeah.
And thanks to my guest. Also, thanks to you for checking out the episode in the series. Before you get out of here, hit that subscribe button. Again, you get 3 brand new interviews every single week. New one every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at right here on YouTube, or of course anywhere in podcast land, including iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podchaser, NPR, or WFPK.org as well. A great way to keep up with your favorite artists and discover new ones as well. Then after that, actually head over to WFPK.org. That's where I do a show Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern. It's an hour full of song premieres, music news, anniversary spins, bonus interviews, Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern at WFPK.org. Consequence has your music and film news. You can also find me on the social media spots, Facebook, Instagram, mostly on Twitter. All three of them, the address is at Kyle Meredith. Do hope you like and follow along. That does it for another edition. I'm Kyle Meredith. I'll see you next time.